we play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Not live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, which is both a broadcast over-the-air radio show and a podcast. This week I'm pre-recording due to a family reunion that I missed last year due to the show. So the lovely Sheila almost went upside the back of my head with an iron skillet. So this year I said I'm pre-recording, but it worked out because my guest today, due to their schedule, doing a recorded show worked out better for them. So I've been waiting for a good time to have them on. I'll introduce them here in a moment. This is normally live talk radio. This week it's pre-recorded, so don't call in or try to tweet me during the show or anything like that. I just want to make that apparent from the beginning. Since this is podcast and people are going to be listening just to the pre-recorded version, the show notes should be up at shaneplays.com for the broadcast show, but they'll definitely be up at shaneplays.com for the podcast version of the show and then the Krypton radio version of the show. Last week's show, I had friends of the show, Bill Abrakeen, also Michael Brown, who is the host of YouTube's geek quiz show Brain Trust. And we just had a good show last week talking about Marvel Comics and how they keep messing up. And this time they're putting the screws to the retailers. And then we talked about this thing in RPG games called the X card. So if you didn't check out that last week, it's a good show. Go check that out. This show does go out as a podcast on my blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and more. We are recently on SoundCloud, and we are definitely picking up listeners there. Very excited about that. Don't forget, I also put the show on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/GoShanePlays. And there's a lot of geeky game and other related stuff on that channel. But I also put the show, just the audio, on YouTube. And some people keep up with the show that way. Last but never least, Shane Plays is also carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, kryptonradio.com. The show is always played a week delayed on Saturdays and Mondays on Krypton Radio. Okay, now that I've got the housekeeping notes out of the way, I want to welcome a returning guest to the show who has been on the show at least once, if not. Jonathan, how many times have you been on the show? It's at least once.
Oh, you know what? I lost count after one.
After one? Okay, I think you.
Yeah, I don't count that anymore.
We've talked so often, offline or outside of the show that I'm like, I feel like that you've been on many times. But you are the expert, the go-to man for fan films, with a focus, but not exclusively on Star Trek fan films. And of course, you've been very close to the Anaxanar situation with Alec Peters, but you also cover other fan film projects, Star Trek and otherwise. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what you do and remind our listeners about your blog and your Facebook page and all that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I dived into the pool of Star Trek fan films, and apparently I can't get out.
Can't get back out.
So here I am writing a blog. The blog, folks, is fanfilmfactor.com, so please go and visit it. I've got over 500 blogs that I've posted.
Nice.
Man, how did that happen? On all different fan films for Star Trek, from the ones that are done very, very cheaply to the $1 million Star Trek Anaxanar project that actually caused a lawsuit, and there's a whole bunch of blogs about the lawsuit itself.
That's how you and I met.
And there's histories of other fan films like Star Trek Continues and Star Trek Renegades, and there's news and pretty much anything you could possibly want for Star Trek fan film information. It's there, folks. And in my secret identity life, I'm basically a stay-at-home dad with a wonderful 7-year-old, almost 7-year-old son, and an amazing wife who is letting me chat here in the morning with Shane. And anyway, I just love my life, and I love what I do.
Cool. Well, you and I met or came in contact or whatever over the Anaxanar stuff, and we could spend a whole show or multiple shows just on Anaxanar. We will give a brief update today, but if people aren't aware, Star Trek Anaxanar, Alec Peters and others, we're doing an incredibly professional fan film telling a period of Star Trek, the 4 Years' War with the Romulans, I believe, or well, no, the Klingons. Yeah, the Klingons that had never been told really in Star Trek lore, definitely not visually. And for, all of a sudden CBS and Paramount got very litigious. Is that litigious? How do you say that?
Litigious. My
Litigious.
wife's litigious. Yes.
Yeah, litigious. Come to find out that, the new upcoming Star Trek Discovery show is set pretty much in that same time frame. So
about 10 to 20 years before Captain Kirk.
Yeah, and you have all
20.
these fan film guidelines that have come out, which, I don't want to retread too much of this. I know I'm not happy with them. You're not happy with them, but they're there. And there's at least, and I'm not even going to name it because I don't want to, but there's at least one fan film production that seems to be exempt from these fan films. And it's still just kind of a mess. But what I want to focus on today in today's show is the positive aspect of fan films out there. There's some cool stuff going on.
There's a lot of cool
stuff. I'm a huge fan of fan films, starting really the first one I saw and really started paying attention to was, Star Trek Phase 2, Star Trek. They've had two different names. I never can remember the other one.
Star Trek New Voyages.
Star Trek New Voyages by James Cawley, who we have an article about him today or some news about him today, back in the mid 2000s. And there was also a really well done movie, and it was from like Norway or something like that, called Star Trek in the Perkinning. And
that was Finland.
It was amazingly done. And those were the things that started sucking me into the Star Trek fan films. And I've watched a lot of them. Of course, the standouts in my opinion are Star Trek New Voyages and Star Trek Continues. Star Trek Continues is, doing a great job, but there's other stuff out there. You've got, Walter Koenig doing Renegades, and, you got a lot of cool stuff about that.
Tommy Crafted Horizon. That's an amazing one.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can check out the Potemkin Picture stuff. They've got like 8 different fan series they're working on right now.
Right.
Incredibly low budget, but they've got a lot of heart.
That's what I look for is heart.
Good storytelling and
yeah.
There's lots of stuff. The stuff that Advanced Major is putting out for the character of Menard. This guy is sort of the Where's Waldo of Star Trek fan films, and I think he had like 12 different Star Trek fan films in less than a year that he worked on or appeared in or wrote or produced or directed or whatever.
Right.
You were talking about the fan film guidelines, and I was resistant to them, but video did not kill the radio star. The fan films have not made the guidelines have not made Star Trek fan films go away.
Right.
And since they were released last June, the guidelines, I think there's probably been at least 100 different Star Trek fan films released in some way or another.
Well, now I will say that it's they haven't gone away, but it has hobbled some of what can be done. And again, there's at least one series out there that doesn't seem to be, or that seems to be exempt from them. But you're right.
You can say Star Trek Continues if you want.
Yeah, I'm trying. Well, I'm just trying to be nice.
But let me just defend these guys a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that there's some people who are Anaxanar fans. That say I don't like Star Trek Continues.
I love Star Trek Continues.
You can drink Coke and Pepsi, guys.
Right.
Yes, there's a bit of a feud between Alec Peters and Vic Mignogna, the showrunners of Anaxanar, and Star Trek Continues. But when it comes down to Star Trek Continues, what they pointed out, to me personally and to other folks, is that the guidelines don't say if you violate these guidelines, you will be sued. They simply say if you follow these guidelines, you won't be sued. Mm-hmm. So Star Trek Continues, they did talk to CBS and Paramount, or at least they said that they did. I have every reason.
Well, they seem to have a close relationship with Gene Roddenberry's son, so I would imagine that they have talked to people.
Well, so do I.
Yeah.
That hasn't helped Alec at all.
Yeah.
But when all's said and done, the folks at Star Trek Continues were wrapping up anyway. They were only going to do 13 episodes. When the guidelines came out, they had enough money to fund 4 more episodes, so that was actually going to only be bringing them to 11.
Right.
So ultimately, they did lose 2 episodes, but only 2 episodes. But they were able to finish up. And I think that, part of this is CBS taking a look and saying, we didn't really like what happened with the lawsuit with Anaxanar because it was a year of publicity hell. It cost them, probably close to $1 million, and ultimately they got a settlement that did not end Anaxanar. Anaxanar still gets to be made. And I think that, part of this is that CBS and Paramount just don't really want to sue anybody else.
Yeah.
So if Star Trek continues to say, look, we're just doing 4 and done, one and done, okay, we're doing 4 and done, and then we're out of here. We're a nonprofit anyway, so you really don't want to sue a nonprofit. We've done work with charities. We're good people, just let us finish off. And, so far I think CBS is saying, let's concentrate on Discovery. Let's all have happy faces right now. And hey, as for fans, I don't diss any fan film, as you know. And I certainly don't diss Star Trek Continues, because every time they come out with a new episode, I love watching it. So I'm happy that they're doing these plans.
Oh, I am too. Let me be very clear. I think Star Trek Continues is spectacular. They've been on the show more than once. Michelle Specht and Chuck Huber and others. And, I think what they're doing is great. My heart for fan films is still with, Star Trek New Voyages, Star Trek Phase 2, because that was the first one that I saw, So a little bit of my heart's with them, but Star Trek Continues does fantastic work. To the point where it's getting hard to distinguish that they're doing stuff that if somebody wasn't really super versed with Star Trek, they might assume they were watching an old episode. They're doing really good. I'm just saying, it just seemed weird, and I don't want to spend too much time hovering on this topic. It just did seem odd to me that, all these fan film guidelines came out. Renegades had to take Star Trek off their title. Anaxanar and CBS and Paramount basically, had their 1 year war, not 4 years war. But yeah, Star Trek Continues. It was just like cricket, and they just kept putting episodes out. So, seemed a little weird, but I'm glad, I'm glad that we're getting the episodes that we're getting. So, and they've got 2 or 3 more episodes coming out by the end of the year.
2 more episodes.
Yeah.
And, I just found out this morning where they're going to premiere their finale.
Oh yeah. Where's that?
So initially they were going to have their last 2 episodes premiering at convention. They always premiere their episodes at a convention before moving on to the internet. So they were going to have To Boldly Go Part 1 come out at Salt Lake City Comic-Con, which was September 21st to 23rd, and then be posted online shortly after. And then the finale was going to be in New York City at New York City Comic-Con.
But then,
October 8th. But the problem was that Salt Lake City Comic-Con is the same weekend as Discovery is premiering on CBS.
Right.
So not wanting to be a distraction, Star Trek Continues decided, okay, we're not going to screen it at at Salt Lake City. And instead, we'll have part 1 of the final 2-parter in New York. And then we'll try to figure out someplace about a month later or so to screen the finale. And as of this morning, I got an email from the nice folks at Stan Lee's LA Comic-Con announcing that the con will end with a screening of the finale of Star Trek Continues, and Vic Mignogna and Todd Haberkorn and Chuck Huber and Grant Imahara will be there. That's Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Sulu, for those people not versed, and who's playing whom. But they will be bringing that episode to L.A., and I'm guessing it will be a very big, widely attended event.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I plan to be there with my son.
Yeah, I would love, I'd love to be there. I think what they do is fantastic. They've done some amazing episodes. But anyway, that's enough time to spend on Star Trek Continues. Smooth sailing for them. We wish them well. We're glad they're doing what they're doing. And we've got a few more things to cover today in the show. I want to get us to a break because this is pre-Federation, so I do have to pay the bills. And I can't replicate the cash to pay for the show here. So I'm going to take us to a break. When we come back, we've got an update from one of the original fan film personalities, James Cawley, and this thing he's doing, the Star Trek Film Academy. And this is big in a lot of ways. And I really want to get Jonathan's take on what's going on here. We'll do that after the break. I'm going to take us to a short break. When we come back, we'll have more with Jonathan Lane of Fan Film Factor and Star Trek fan film news right here on Shane Plays Geek Talk.
And now it's time to give a little love to one of our sponsors. Some Goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. That's 501-224-GAME or gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent ya.
The smell of mildew emanates from wet stone walls. The only choices before you are to enter the door to the north or travel back up the stairs from whence you came.
Okay. I go to the door to the north.
In this room you encounter an event promoter.
Arkansas RPG Con is the Arkansas convention for all tabletop role-playing games. Arkansas RPG Con will be held on Saturday, October 21st at the Gene Moss Building, located at 913 East Sevier Street in Benton, Arkansas. Early bird tickets are just $7, so visit arpgcon.com for all the details about Arkansas RPG Con. Okay, well, I guess I go to Arkansas RPG Con.
Yeah, that does sound pretty fun.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today. The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Remember, this is a pre-recorded show this week, so don't try to call in. I'm joined by Jonathan Lane, who I've had the delight of getting to know over the past year or so. And we came together over Anaxanar, all the news and craziness going on with Star Trek Anaxanar, but we've gotten to know each other, and I've become part of his Facebook group, which was Project Small Access, but which is now just the Fan Film Factor Facebook page.
No, it's actually Fan Film Forum.
Fan Film Forum, okay.
Yeah, because Fan Film Factor already had a Facebook page, but this was going to be a group.
Okay.
So we decided that we weren't going to be able to change the world. We were only 1,300 people, so instead we're going to focus on fan films. So Fan Film Forum on Facebook, come and join us because there's a lot of really interesting stuff being discussed there, a lot of good people, and our moderators are doing a wonderful job at keeping the trolls away.
Yeah. No, it's because especially with small access, it could be a divisive topic, and it really, done a good job of having good discussion. That does get passionate at times, but it's not a toxic forum by any means, and it's going to get even less toxic as we focus on our love of fan films. And people, if you love Star Trek, and for whatever reason, and I'm not down in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. I'm not going to try to down Discovery or any of that. I'm just saying, if you love Star Trek and it hasn't been scratching that itch of Star Trek the past few years with what has been coming out, in my opinion, fan films is the way to go, because there's a lot of heart in these fan films.
And there's lots and lots to watch. If you go to fanfilmfactor.com, folks, there's a tab at the top called List of Fan Films, and I've got it all laid out for you. I've got them rated from basically top to bottom, or alphabetically if you prefer, or my newest blogs first, whichever way you want to do it, but everything links to the videos. Really worth taking a look.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. And there's so much more out there than Star Trek Continues, or some of the other bigger names. There's a lot of stuff out there. In fact, one of my favorites that I found a couple of years ago was an animated one that was set in the original series time frame. So there's some really cool stuff out there. But what I want to talk about now, and it's big news, I would say, within the Star Trek fan community, is James Cawley, who is very well known in the Star Trek fan film world. He was not the first, but he was one of the first to really try to tackle episode length, episodes of Star Trek set in the original series or otherwise.
He spent $125,000 of his own money building
the set, and he's actually he's a pretty big-hearted guy from what I understand, because he's allowed other fan films to use that studio, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, in the past there's been a number of other fan films, including Anaxanar, by the way. They filmed a very short piece on the new voice set.
So I get the sense. Now, I've never met him. I've talked to him on the phone briefly a couple of times. You might have a better sense than I do, Jonathan, but I get the sense that he's sort of a fan of fan films and wants fan films out there. I don't think he's...
And an amazing Elvis impersonator.
Well, when I talked to him on the phone, because I'm trying to schedule him to get to come on the show in the next few weeks, he's like, I'd like to do it, but I got to schedule it around my concerts, because he does Elvis impersonation. So
the question is, when you hung up with him, did he say thank you very much?
like a he said, pass the gravy.
No, he's a great guy. I've talked to him a couple of times, and the big news. Did you want to tell them the big news, or should I tell them?
No, I want you to, sir.
Okay, I will tell them the big news. So, Star Trek New Voyages / Star Trek Phase 2 released about a dozen episodes over the course of 10 or 15 years. Very, very good episodes. They actually had George Takei playing Sulu in one of their episodes. They had Walter Koenig playing Chekhov in one of their episodes. They've had professionals working on their show. They've had amateurs working on their show. Lots and lots of heart. And unfortunately, when the guidelines came out, James Cawley just decided that, okay, this was it for New Voyages. We're gonna shut down the production. Fans were very, distraught over that. I'd say, very upset. 3 episodes have been filmed. They just haven't been edited together yet, and we don't know if those are ever going to be released. But shortly thereafter, James Cawley announced that he had purchased a license from CBS Consumer Products to turn his amazing sets, which basically have recreated the entire Desilu soundstage from 1966, 1967. If you walk on there, you basically are walking through what William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy walked through in the 1960s. And the detail's amazing. He licensed it for the Star Trek set tour. So you can go there, you can buy a ticket for $22 or whatever it is, and you can walk through the sets. You can take a picture in the captain's chair. You can stand in the transporter room. The only problem is that it's sort of in the middle of nowhere, Ticonderoga in upstate New York.
Right.
It's about 4.5, 5 hours north of New York City. Faster way to get there is actually to fly into Burlington, Vermont, and drive down about 90 minutes across Lake Champlain. But it's sort of, it's in the middle of nowhere, but you know what? People are going to the set tour, and they're enjoying it, and every year he has a convention up there called Ticonderoga. And a few weeks ago, or actually, I guess the beginning of the month, he announced a new offering for the set tour. He's been a good licensee for the last year. And he worked with Mike Akuda and Denise Akuda and Doug Drexler, and one other person whose name escapes me at the moment. I'm sorry about that.
Let me interrupt you there real quick, Jonathan. If people don't know, the Akudas are very deep into Star Trek, both from helping with the TV series, but also writing technical manuals, writing fiction. So, there's a lot of big names out there, but if you bring in the Akudas, that's a whole new, that's a pretty big level.
They are the Neil deGrasse Tyson of Star Trek.
Right.
They are basically the ones who, get Star Trek to the masses. They're wonderful, wonderful people.
Well, and it's Denise, and what's his name?
Denise, Mike Akuda, and Doug Drexler is
right.
Also a wonderful, wonderful guy. He does special effects, visual effects for Star Trek. He worked on Battlestar Galactica. He does the calendars, the Ships of the Line calendars. I mean, these are just wonderful, wonderful people.
Right.
And they came to Ticonderoga, New York, and they looked around, and they came up with an idea with James. And when I say came up with an idea, I know that there's some argument here of who came up with the idea first. I don't care who came up with the idea first.
Right.
But the idea was to do a Star Trek Film Academy where people would come to upstate New York for the week, and professionals who had worked on Star Trek would also be up there for the week. And it would sort of be like film school meets Trek cruise. Trek cruise, you're stuck on a boat with, John Delancey, Marina Sirtis, and whatever else, and, I want to say stuck on a boat with them. But, everybody's in the same place, and so,
right.
You see them in the mess
You get to really rub elbows.
You literally rub elbows.
Right.
It can be a lot of fun, and obviously it costs a bit of money for the people who can afford it, but, it's memories for a lifetime. So that's what James wants to create in upstate New York. He wants fans to be able to spend a week making a Star Trek episode. And there's been arguments of, are you learning to make a fan film? Or are you learning to make a real film? It's like, you know what? They're still kind of working that out because they have scripts that they have had approved by the folks in licensing saying, okay, you can make these episodes. But you'll be going through the script as a director. You'll be signing, okay, do we want to, keep this scene in? Do we want to make this shorter? Do we want to make this longer? Where are we going to put our special effects shot? Where are we going to put our cameras? It's going to be a real immersive experience, and it sounds like a very exciting, very fun thing for fans to do. So, in my mind, this is fantastic for a number of reasons. First of all, hey, it's a great idea. Whether it works or doesn't, it's a great idea. Like I said, I don't care who thought of it first.
If I had the money and the time, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, seriously. I'm still trying to figure out a way to get myself to upstate New York and see these sets because it was always my dream and in my younger years to sit on the captain's chair and walk around the corridors of the Enterprise. And now I can do it. I just live in Los Angeles. But anyway, so there's that. So it's good news for that, and it's also good because it is, for all intents and purposes, a fan film that the fans will be creating. Yes, it's an episode of Star Trek or a short, 15-minute vignette of Star Trek. But that's essentially what a fan film is. And you're working with professionals, and right now the fan films can't really have professionals in them anymore. But it's still, CBS is acknowledging that fan films are here. They're not going away, and they're not necessarily a bad thing. So in my mind, it's forwarding the cause of the fan film. So I celebrate this. I celebrate James. I applaud him. I applaud the Akutas, and I applaud Doug, and I applaud the person whose name I can't remember. I'm so sorry. Oh, Darren Dockerman. Thank you. I got it.
You got it.
Oh, yes, Darren. Sorry for forgetting you. But all of these people are really committed to this. And you know what? When I saw the announcement, I was so happy. And folks think that Alec Peters, who was the person who allegedly had the idea first for the Sci-Fi Film School, was going to be all upset over this. And you know what? Alec is happy for them. And Alec is still planning on doing his Sci-Fi Film Academy. He's moved the Anaxanar sets to Georgia. He's got a whole bunch of volunteers who help set them up. And he's going to be using his sets to have professionals in there to teach people how to make sci-fi films. And it's not necessarily the same thing. In fact, they're very complementary, what James is doing and what Alec is doing. And for me, it's like it doesn't have to be a choice of one or the other. This is an embarrassment of riches. This is something that even 5 years ago I couldn't have ever imagined happening.
Okay.
And now, not only is it happening, it's happening in two different places. And who knows, other folks may do it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if so, hey, viva la fan film, viva la sci-fi film, viva la professionals. Just everybody have fun. This is great.
Now, I'll go ahead and add a couple extra details to what you're talking about based on recent conversations that I've had with James Cawley. I've talked to him, and I don't want to present like that I'm having these long, in-depth conversations with him and I'm in the know and all this, but I have had a couple of conversations with him because I've wanted to have him on the show anyway for a long time, just because I enjoyed Star Trek Phase 2, Star Trek New Voyages. In fact, out of all Star Trek Continues and that, my favorite episode of them all is this episode called Enemy Starfleet. And I just love it. So, but I like all their stuff. And they've done some pretty
World Enough in Time.
Yeah, World Enough in Time with George Takei is excellent. George Takei. And then there's another one they did, which was a two-parter, which was some pretty deep storytelling. Really, they were talking about the AIDS virus.
Blood and Fire.
And that was amazing. I mean, they've done some pretty deep storytelling. But,
that was a David Gerald written and directed episode, by the way. David Gerald did Trouble with Tribbles. He had always wanted to do that episode for the original Star Trek series, but it never went to a fourth season.
Right.
So... but yes, they've done some amazing stuff there. They really have. Yeah,
it's really good. But anyway, but that being that, when the news came out about the Film Academy, I reached out to James Cawley and said, hey, I've got a Geek Talk radio show. I'd love to have you come on. And I said, and again, hopefully we can get him on to explain things in his own words. So I'm just going to share my conversation. I said, about the Film Academy. And he goes, it's not, it was very important for him to tell me, he's like, this is not a film academy. It's a fantasy camp, because I guess that terminology is important to him. Maybe it's sensitive because of the fan film guidelines. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak too much.
Did you mean to say that you were calling it a fan film academy and not just a film academy?
Well, he's calling it a fantasy camp, I believe.
Fantasy camp is fine.
Yeah.
I heard that he was a little bit sensitive about calling it a fan film
right.
camp or a fan film.
Well, maybe,
school.
yeah. Well, he just basically said, he's like, the press is getting this wrong. Now, I don't want to speak further because I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm just sharing what he shared with me. I mean, he didn't say that he's not doing it. I think he's just being very careful about what he's calling it.
But that's fine.
Right. And then he also, the last time I talked to him, which was about a week ago, he said, because we're trying to work around, he's got a pretty heavy schedule of concerts and this, that, and getting that. He said, I really can't, he says, we're still working everything out. I can't share any substantial details for a couple of weeks. So call me back in a couple of weeks. That was about a week ago. So that's all I know about this to add to what you've shared.
Okay. Well, when you finally talk to him, tell him I want to talk to him too.
Okay, I will. Maybe when I get him on, you can join me. So, but he was a nice guy. He answers the phone.
He's a great guy.
He's not like, you don't have to go through 8 layers of whoever to get to him. He's just like, hey, what's going on? And I got the impression talking to him is just a pretty straight shooter. So, But anyway, was there anything else that you wanted to mention about that? Because we don't know cost yet. We don't know how, or any of that, but we do know that you get a very authentic experience of what it would have felt like to be making an original series episode. Behind the scenes.
You know what? I wish them luck. Obviously, the challenge is going to be scheduling people. Obviously, Ticonderoga is a very small place in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful, beautiful area. I used to have a friend. I still have a friend who used to have a place up in Schroon Lake, New York, north of there. And it is the middle of nowhere, but it is beautiful middle of nowhere. And he's planning on doing it in the spring and the fall, twice a year. Because the summer is just way too hot there and the winter is way too cold.
Mm-hmm.
So the Goldilocks area. So if he can get, people to schedule their time, the professionals to schedule a week of their time in the spring and the fall, then, that is 80% of the challenge right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, if he builds it, they will come. I don't know if he's going to get 500 people, but, he might get 50 or 100. And if it catches on, hey, once again, this is a great thing. I wish him all the luck in the universe.
I have no doubt that people will come. I mean, I think even like CBS and Paramount don't really understand how deep the love and heart among the fans for Star Trek there is. Now, I know they understand it on one hand because they're like, if we throw it out there, people will watch it in a cynical way, right? But I'm saying I'm being cynical. I'm not saying they're being cynical. But I don't think a lot of people really grasp how deep. I mean, it's a very deep, deep, deep love and desire to be involved with things like this in the Star Trek world for a lot of people. So,
back in the 1970s, it was fan fiction. People were on their typewriters and mimeographing things, and then Xeroxing and desktop publishing. And, when video became inexpensive enough for fans to start creating their own, filmed Star Trek, they would put on their Spock ears and their uniforms and, get in front of a green screen or just, walk out in their backyard and start filming something. Like I said, and then James Cawley spent $125,000 building an actual bridge and transporter, and it was getting kind of crazy, but, it was for a while as a space race, as John Van Sitters of CBS Licensing called it, and, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you finally had, I think the first one across the $1 million crowdfunding line was the one to get sued, and that happened to be Anaxanar.
Right.
And I think if it hadn't been Anaxanar, it would have been Renegades because they were hot on their heels with 800,000.
Right.
As it was, I think the guidelines. Everybody thinks the guidelines were there to stop Anaxanar. Anaxanar was already being stopped. Anaxanar was in court, and CBS was not expecting Anaxanar to ever be made. But there were still a bunch of space racers out there, and Star Trek Renegades had just announced itself, in November, right before the lawsuit, that they were going to be doing 12 episodes a year of Star Trek Renegades. This is before the guidelines came out and they had to take Star Trek out of their title. But that was their, CBS said, we don't want it to be a pilot, we're not buying your pilot, but they never told them to stop. So they said, we're going to keep crowdfunding, we're going to do 12 episodes a year now, we already have our sets built. And the guidelines, if you look at them, the guidelines actually had a number of things in there that were not Anaxanar focused. Like, for example, you can't have Star Trek in the title. Anaxanar hadn't had Star Trek in its title for almost a year and a half. You can only have a 2-part episode and no ongoing series. Well, that wasn't an issue for Anaxanar. They were just making a 90-minute movie and then they were going to be done. So a lot of these guidelines were set to stop Renegades and to stop Star Trek Continues and to stop the rest of them. Because CBS was like, okay, we've stopped Anaxanar in the courtroom. We need to stop the rest of them. It wasn't really to stop them. It was just basically drawing that line in the sand. You can still make your fan film.
Right.
You just can't make your fan film for $300,000 and certainly not for $1 million. And stop using all the actors and stop using all the professionals. I think they overreached. Obviously I wouldn't have started the small access campaign if I didn't want to pressure CBS to change the guidelines. But, I think for CBS, they're just like, okay, it's time for us to finally say this is as far as you can go and no farther.
Right. Well, like I said, I've done entire shows on CBS and Paramount and Anaxanar and all that. I will say that the only thing I'll say on this is they have the right to legally talk about guidelines and all that we have the right to say philosophically, well, yeah, you have the right to do that, but you're being jerks about it, or jerky or whatever. I will say this, and I'm not down in Discovery. I'm not telling people not to watch Discovery. I have not seen anything from the press or the trailers or anything like that that makes me want to subscribe to CBS All Access to watch it. And I'll just leave it at that. I feel like they're missing the mark on what people want Trek to be. And that's just me based on, it's their job. As I told somebody else, I'm not against Star Trek Discovery. I hope people enjoy it, this, that, and the other, but it's their job. If they want me to shell out the bucks every month to subscribe to a streaming service just to watch Star Trek, to blow me away so much that there's no way, I'm like, I don't care how much it is, I'm subscribing. And in my opinion, they have not done that for a lot of people.
Well, Shane, I will tell you something, and you'll be able to see a blog of mine next week. I don't know when this is airing.
Yeah, it'll air on the 9th.
Okay, well, in that case, somewhere like right after Labor Day, there's going to be a 2-part blog where I basically tell you, unfortunately, you are not the droids that CBS is looking for. Neither am I.
Yeah, right.
We are the aging old farts.
Right.
And honestly, they are aiming at a much younger audience demographic that doesn't have the 50-year relationship with Star Trek.
Right.
And it was a calculated Vulcan risk on their part. They have decided to take the path of trying to get the tech adopters to sign up for All Access. Now, what I do in this blog is I talk about how this may be a Kobayashi Maru scenario where they wouldn't have been able to get enough Trekkies to subscribe had they hewed to canon. But at the same point in time, by not hewing to canon and concentrating on the young guys, CBS All Access may just not be ready for prime time yet. They don't have enough offerings in the sci-fi genre. So unless Discovery is like so amazingly awesome that it convinces all of these non-connected fans who don't have the same relationship with Star Trek that we do to go and spend their $6 or $10 a month.
I thought it was like, one of my beefs is it's like $12 or $13 a month, isn't it? If it was only a couple of bucks a month.
$6 a month if you want commercials, 12 minutes of commercials per hour.
Right.
Or $10 a month if you don't want the commercials. And for that, you not only get Star Trek Discovery, you get all of the Star Trek series. You get the Twilight Zone. That's it for sci-fi, by the way, unless you want like Under the Dome or Extant, which was canceled after 2 seasons. There's not a lot in the sci-fi realm. In the comedy realm, you've got The Odd Couple and The Brady Bunch and I Love Lucy and The Big Bang Theory. And the CBS is limited by what they've created. So, yes, you can watch every episode of NCIS or CSI that you want, but do you really want to? And oh, by the way, they've got Face the Nation, the news show, all 262 episodes of that. Do I really want to go back to 1994 and watch Face the Nation? I don't think so. So really, what is All Access offering me as a young sci-fi fan? Not that I am, but if they're targeting that group, and I don't think they have enough to offer yet. And I don't think the cake is baked yet.
Well, let me. I've got it just to move us forward because I want to cover some other topics. I'm going to get us to a break, but I just want to enter on this. Here's what I fear that we lose no matter what. Let me explain what I would mean by that. And then unfortunately, I'm going to have to take us to a break. It fails spectacularly and they blame it on Star Trek instead of the all access streaming, paid streaming model. And then they're gun shy on doing any more Star Trek because they put the blame in the wrong place.
It's a possibility, but I think there's been so many criticisms of them right now that I think, and especially if the Orville does well on Fox, CBS may look in the mirror and say, you know what, we chose unwisely.
I think the Orville, personally, and I mean, only hindsight will show, I think the Orville is going to scratch that itch and people are going to flock to it. That's what I believe, but we don't know. It hadn't aired yet. The other thing that I fear, this is why I fear it's a no-win, is that it is successful on a certain level and that's the Trek we get from this point forward. So it's like and I just don't feel like that's the heart of Trek that we've been used to for 50 years. But anyway, unfortunately, I'm going to take us to a break. And then I want to maybe talk a little bit about, when we come back, we'll just have a few minutes. Maybe we can highlight some other cool fan film projects that are out there. We're talking with Jonathan Lane of Fan Film Factor, the man to go to have your questions answered.
Shane and Lane for Together Again.
Together Again. To talk about Star Trek fan films. We'll be back on Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. And we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love, with Jonathan Lane of Fan Film Factor, and on Facebook, the Fan Film Forum. Go ahead, and with the time we have left, we've got 4 or 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. Go ahead and update us on cool projects that are out there right now, Jonathan.
All right, let's see what news I can give you. Obviously, Anaxanar update. All the sets are moved to Georgia. They're no longer paying their rent on the expensive place in Valencia. Alec Peters has finished building the bridge. They had to write 2 scripts. They had to write the 2-part 30-minute script, the 2 15-minute part script, and they also had to write the full script. And the reason for that is that fans are still going to getting the full script, but in order to take the best scenes from it and make the 2-parter, they had to have something to work from. So I know that somebody leaked a version of the script, like 7-point-something, that was there before the lawsuit. I actually have read the more recent version, 10-point-something or whatever. It's significantly different. It's a lot better. It's been tightened up a lot. Much less of a Mary Sue kind of fan film. And I've read the 2-parter. So that script is done, at least the first draft of it. Alec Peters brought it to some people to show, including myself. I gave him some suggestions. I had 3, I think, really awesome ideas. Did
you tell him it needed more cowbell?
Absolutely needed more cowbell. Actually, I told him it needed more Soval. I sort of felt like in pulling the best parts of the longer movie, Soval kind of got a little bit lost in the mix there, and I wrote this amazing speech for Soval that I really, really hope that Alec wants to use, because it gives Gary Graham a much better part, and a much bigger part to play in the whole Anaxanar thing.
Can I ask you this real quick?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we lost Richard Hatch.
Yes.
Has Alex shared how he's handling that moving forward?
Because it's a look back, it's done in the same mockumentary style. In that reality of the mockumentary, when they're interviewing, between filming episode 3 of The 4 Years' War and episode 4, we discover that Karn has passed away. He's obviously an older Klingon anyway. But we do get to meet his mentor, and a very venerable Klingon thought admiral. And that's a very interesting character. It's a brand new character to be brought in. And there's some really good stuff in there. And like I said, I've given Alec a few ideas of my own, including what I think is the most exciting special effect fan film climax scene that if he decides to do it, I'll just be so excited. If he doesn't want to do it, I understand. But it just came to me one night. I was like, hey, what if you change the scene around to have it be this way? And anyway, he hasn't read my entire script yet. So, anyway, so I suggested some scenes for him. But, he's got other people giving him feedback as well. He only gets one shot at this. CBS is letting him violate some of the guidelines, and that he gets to use professional. He gets to use his original actors again.
Right. I don't think people realize how much of a win that is.
I won't go into the details of it, but the thing is that, when you go against, a Fortune 500 company, billions and billions of dollars, and they're throwing $1 million at a lawsuit, to survive the lawsuit at all without a huge judgment is a win.
Right.
To actually get to make your fan film and only have to sacrifice 60 minutes of 90 is, holy crap. So anyway, but the thing is that, everyone's like, why isn't Anaxanar done yet? And you know what? It's not done yet because Alec is trying to do it right. He gets one shot at this. and it probably won't get filmed until next year, and it probably won't get finished until next year. You know what? There's other fan films out there that haven't been completed yet, and I'm not, banging my fist saying, why aren't these ready yet? And neither are the detractors. Like, for example, Pacific 201. We're all looking forward to Pacific 201.
Yeah, tell me a little bit briefly about what Pacific. I'm not familiar with Pacific 201.
Yeah, this is great. The fellow by the name of Eric Henry came up with this idea of telling the story of what happened after the founding of the Federation, about halfway between the end of Enterprise and the beginning of Kirk's 5-year mission. And it's 40 years after the Romulan War, and Earth is just beginning to stretch its space legs again. I mean, we have been, it was like 9/11. I mean, the Romulan War was devastating. And we were just, we kind of retreated into ourselves, and this is the first step out back into the final frontier. The first starship to be built where the mission is exploration. And it's 40 years later, and the older generation is still shell-shocked, is still remembering that horrible war. But the younger generation wants to go back to the stars and just learn and explore and discover. And it's that push-pull. And I find that concept amazing. And the ship is amazing, and he's built his own sets, and he's got some professional actors in there. So Pacific 201.
What's behind the name Pacific 201? And then we'll probably need to start drawing it to a close. But what's the?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's the USS Pacific, and it's NCC 201.
Okay.
So that's where you get it from. It's an early, Starfleet vessel. But anyway, we're looking forward to that. They're almost finished with all the photography, and then it's editing, and it'll come out when it comes out. I mean, I was a donor. It's great. By the way, look for Pacific 201 and Indiegogo, and give Eric Henry some more money. Just do it. Just don't ask questions. Just give him more money.
Just give him money.
And other ones I'm really looking forward to. First Frontier, which was self-funded, and that's the story of Captain April on the original NCC 17.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that April preceded Pike.
April preceded Pike. And this is a guy, Kenny Smith, who is basically the showrunner for that, who decided that he really likes models more than just CGI effects. So he built he had people build for him, an actual 11-foot model of the original Enterprise, like the one from the cage. And it looks amazing. And he shot it in Georgia or Florida, I think it was Florida, in front of green screens. It's incredible. And if you look up First Frontier on Fan Film Factor, there's an amazing video I have up there. Just do a search for First Frontier.
I think I've seen some photos of that. It looks amazing. So we got Pacific 201, First Frontier, and then I see this name come up a lot. First Frontier is the one you were just talking about. Captain April built this amazing 11-foot model. Now,
still waiting for Starship Farragut's finale, Homecoming.
Right.
That one they also pulled their money in just before the lawsuit with Anaxanar happened, and so it's been about 2 years that we've been waiting for them to finish post-production on this. They did all their filming. When that comes out, I love that crew. I love Starship Farragut. They were actually the ones that built a lot of the sets that Star Trek Continues now uses.
Oh, I did not. I know that Farragut's been out there doing it for a long time. Well, I'll tell you, man, I got to draw us to a close. To paraphrase one of the best lines from Star Trek Generations, when it comes to radio, time is a predator that stalks us all our lives. But Jonathan, as always, it's been a pleasure. And what I would like to do is, make this a recurring 2 or 3 times a year. Let's just get a fan film update going on what's going on out there in the world of fan films. And I just want to tell people, you cover a lot of Star Trek, but you will sometimes cover non-Star Trek fan film, right? Yeah.
Although not that many, because honestly, it's just the rabbit hole is infinite.
Right.
So I have to kind of focus more on Star Trek fan films or fan films that are using Star Trek people.
Okay. So let's do this real quick. Tell us again how people can find you online, and then we'll end it with the beloved and much maligned and my lawyers are fending off the ravening hordes, the bad joke of the week. But tell us real quick again how people can find you.
Okay, but let me tell you. Can I tell you a bad joke of the week instead?
Sure.
Can I have it?
Yeah, but you got to take us out with it. So give us
I'll take you out with it.
Yeah, give us the other stuff first.
To me, and it sort of says everything.
All right.
So, okay, anyway, you can find me pretty much at fanfilmfactor.com, and there's a way to contact us, and it'll send me a nice email, so there's always that. I do have a Facebook page also for Fan Film Factor, and then Fan Film Forum is a fantastic group, and I'm obviously there quite a bit.
And I'm there as well.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, let me tell you what my 7-year-old, who is also a Trekkie, said to me the other night, because
Okay.
this is why nobody can insult me.
Okay.
Okay? Because my 7-year-old said to me the other night, you know, Daddy, you're not as smart as a Vulcan, but at least you're still smarter than dumb people.
Well, that's words to live by. So I guess I would probably fall in that category somewhere too, I would hope. But anyway, all right, Jonathan, thanks so much for being on. Again, folks, that was Jonathan Lane of Fan Film Factor.
My name is James Cawley, and I'm from Ticonderoga, New York, and I am obsessed with Star Trek. I don't know anybody else that has really gone to this level of creativity or obsessiveness, I guess. Well, we started out building just this room. This is called the bridge. And then, of course, you need a transporter room. Then you need some corridor. We have the briefing room. We have the engineering set. 13,000 square feet of Star Trek. In many ways, this set is superior to what they shot on 50 years ago because we have real computers displaying animations and graphics, something that was science fiction when the original show was conceived.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.